The Haunted Mirror. It's said that a mirror never lies, but there are many superstitions attached to the mirror in various cultures. It's believed that mirrors connect us to a parallel universe. But what if mirrors take us to a world from where it is impossible to return? What if for every time we admire our beauty in front of a mirror, it takes away a part of our beauty in return? One such story is about Carol living in New York. New York City is often called the City of Dreams. It was Carol's childhood dream to live in New York, and when her first novel became a bestseller, all her dreams started to turn into reality. She bought a lavish apartment in the heart of New York City. She was very particular about how her house should look, so she decided to do the interiors of the place by herself. One day, when she went out with her childhood friend Susan to shop for her new house, something strange happened. After an entire day of running errands and shopping, both of them were exhausted. They were returning back to Carol's apartment when Carol's eyes set on a mirror on the roadside. A weird old man was sitting next to it. Carol approached it. The moment she came in front of the mirror, the old man started screaming frantically and ran away from there. Susan found this extremely weird, but Carol's gaze was fixed on that mirror. The mirror didn't look like any ordinary mirror. The frame had wooden carvings and was well polished. It looked as if it was made to be part of some palace. Carol just went on staring at herself in the mirror in admiration. Susan called out to Carol, but she couldn't hear her. She was totally lost by herself in that mirror. Susan shook Carol up and brought her back to her senses. Carol picked up the mirror and said to Susan, "Wouldn't this mirror just look amazing in my bedroom?" Before Susan could respond, Carol took that mirror and started walking ahead. They reached her apartment and Carol hung the mirror in her bedroom and smiled at it. Her happiness conveyed as if the mirror was the only thing that could complete her house. The next morning, Carol came to her bedroom after a shower, and she looked at herself in the mirror, and once again she was completely mesmerized by it. She just sported a smile on her face and went on staring at herself. That's when her phone rang and suddenly came back to her senses. She was surprised to see the time. Almost 2 hours had passed since she began to admire herself looking in the mirror. But this did not stop there. Carol was obsessed with the mirror. With time, she had completely stopped stepping outside her house. Day in and day out, all she did was stare at herself in the mirror. One day, Susan called Carol for a morning run. She finally agreed after Susan's sheer persistence. The next day, Susan waited for Carol in the park, but when Carol got there, Susan didn't recognize her. Susan felt that Carol had grown by at least 10 years. When she told this to Carol, she didn't understand. When she saw herself in her phone's camera, she screamed. There were wrinkles on her face and her hair had turned gray. Seeing this, Carol went into a state of shock and, on the pretext of some important work, left for her home. As soon as she reached her home, she ran towards her bedroom where that mirror was. Seeing herself in the mirror, she became happy again, as she was seeing the young and beautiful Carol there in it. Looking at that mirror, Carol suddenly started feeling a little dizzy and she fell down. That night, Carol woke up by a girl's scream, and that scream was coming from nowhere else but from inside that mirror. She was getting up to go to the mirror when she felt a severe pain in her back. When slowly she reached down from where the scream was coming, she was left shell-shocked. Carol herself was inside the mirror, and she was banging the mirror from the inside as if she'd been trapped in there. Carol became very nervous and started thinking that maybe it was all just a dream, and she turned her eyes toward the bed. But seeing the bed, she got even more nervous. She again saw herself sleeping on the bed. Carol could not understand where she was stuck. She was trying to scream, but her voice was not coming out. In panic, Carol picked up a vase lying on her side table and smashed that mirror into pieces. When Carol looked at herself again in the broken pieces of the mirror, she saw an old woman and not herself. Carol picked up the phone to see herself, but everything was just blurry. Carol understood that she had turned into an old woman. When Carol's attention turned to that mirror again, the mirror was no longer broken. Rather, just as before, it was hanging on the wall, and inside it stood a young Carol, weeping. 3 days later, when there was no news from Carol, Susan called the police to Carol's apartment, but both Carol and the mirror were missing from that house. To date, no one has been able to tell what happened to Carol, but a lot of people have definitely heard that an old woman sits in front of a mirror on the dark streets of New York, staring at herself. How did you like this story? Have you ever been afraid to look at yourself in the mirror? Do tell us in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel, Bloody Monday.